Welcome to the Rockstar Principles Podcast, coming straight to you from Rock and Roll, USA, covering the latest and greatest in educational leadership trends, news, and awesomeness for principals all over the world. Now, here are your hosts, the boss, John Ross, and the doctor of proctors, Nick Indeglio.
Welcome back, my friends, to the Rockstar Principles Podcast. And once again, it is time for the Church of Whitaker. Yes, please all join me, join hands as we recite together principle number 4 of Todd Whitaker's 18 Things Great Principals Do Differently. And number 4 is create a positive atmosphere in their schools. Treat every person with respect and understand the power of praise. Brother Nicholas, I must confess, this is the one that I struggle the most with as a leader, as a principal. And an area John, that I am working on. I've dedicated myself. I'm pouring my heart and soul into being a more positive person, a more positive leader, enjoying the power of praise. And I am seeing the results, yes, this early in my school year, seeing the results of just that much more of a difference I can make by praising people.
How about a specific example, Brother John? A specific example of the power of positivity.
Well, we don't need examples. All you need to think of is what the great Todd Whitaker says himself. You're never too old for praise. So this goes for children and for adults as well. For instance,
you can teach an old dog new tricks.
You can. I mean, again, who doesn't like getting praised? Who doesn't want to hear about it over and over again when people have noticed that you've lost weight? Who doesn't want to hear about it over and over again when you're wearing that brand new pair of shoes to school one day? Now, we all enjoy that praise. Everyone enjoys it, whether it's for things like that are completely on the surface, or things deep and meaningful, like students that we were able to reach, students that we were able to take and mold and shape and guide them on their way toward learning and seeing those results. We need to recognize one another. We need to thank and praise one another when we have those things happening around us.
Interestingly, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, one of the chats we were on, I think it might have been in maybe not the Ed Tech chat, but perhaps the Ed Leader chat or Ed. There are so many chats we're doing these days.
There's a lot of them out there.
It might have just been Ed chat. But anyway, someone brought up the idea of a praise referral. And it basically is the same as your normal discipline slip for bad behavior, except for it would look the same. It would just have positive
Positive?
Yeah,
I think it's the word you were looking for?
That might have been the word I was looking for. So in addition to all the cool things we do, like random acts of kindness and recognizing positive things, maybe sometimes bringing a good kid to the office for something like that is a nice way to do it. And instead of a detention, a Dr. Bruton ice cream pass.
The only caveat that I would put on that is to just make sure it's genuine. And that's the thing that I've struggled with in wanting to praise more often. I don't want to become someone who praises just for the sake of praise. I don't want to say I'm going to praise 5 people today. I'm going to praise 10 people today. To me, it's got to be in the moment. It's got to be meaningful in order for it to have any effect and make any difference. So that's what I'm trying to do, and we should all try to do more often in our lives.
That's very genuine. That's very authentic. I praise you for that.
Why, thank you, sir. Thank you, Brother Nick. And that concludes this week's portion of the Church of Whitaker. You may close your books now and have a seat.
Whitakerian!
And now a word from our fake sponsors. But we'd really love if they were our real sponsors. Seriously, we would love it.
Another public service announcement from Brill Cream. Men, beware. Use 1 dab of Brill Cream. Just a little dab makes your hair look excitingly clean, disturbingly healthy. This man dared to use 2 dabs. Now he's in trouble. We refuse to be responsible.
Brill Cream, Brill Cream, Brill Cream. Brill Cream, a little dab will do ya. Brill Cream, you look so debonair. Brill Cream, the gals will all pursue ya. They'll love to get their fingers in your hair. Brill Cream, a little dab will do ya. Or watch out, the gals will all pursue ya.
Get Brill Cream today.
All right, rock stars, welcome back to the Rockstar Principles Podcast. We're on location here in New York City, and we're here with a very special guest today for our interview segment. We're here with Mike Indeglio. Mike, say hello.
Hey, what's up? That's a train going by.
So, Mike, before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about where we're recording from?
Well, we're not in the heart of New York City. That would be a misnomer. We are in Astoria Park, which is in the Astoria section, Astoria neighborhood of Queens, borough of New York, in the playground, right by the largest public pool in New York City, and also a high dive that was used for some sort of diving trials for some Olympics somewhere at some time that is now decrepit and shut down. They're actually turning into a performing arts space. It's the news.
All right, so here we are on location. So to all of our New York City Rockstar principals listening, this one's for you. We're here in the heart of your city. So, Mike, today's topic is going to touch on motivation and success through different avenues than what we normally expect. Normally, you would graduate high school, and the two routes are straight into the workforce or the military, or go to college and pursue that route. Your route was somewhat non-traditional in that sense, so why don't you start off just telling us a little bit about, the wild card, what your career has led you to and how you got to that point.
Well, let's see. After high school, I graduated in 1999. I went off to Ithaca College to study, I guess, sound recording, and I had a minor in vocal performance, which, looking back, felt a little arbitrary. I think I just picked whatever you had to pick. We can talk about that later, but I sort of felt a little bit shoehorned into making a decision about the rest of my life, not really realizing that ambiguity was okay. That you didn't have to know what you wanted to do with the rest of your life when you were 18 years old.
Novel concept.
However, I went off. That didn't really work out for a variety of reasons. I came back to Pennsylvania. Our dad got sick, and so I tried to take some courses at community college and different things, and also didn't quite work out. And then a teacher I had in high school, a choreographer, I had done one musical performance, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, my senior year of high school. And the choreographer for that happened to be doing a professional show in town when I was in home. And she asked if I wanted to come out and do that. I said, yeah. I came and did it. And that's kind of when some light bulbs went off, and I thought, hey, I can get paid to do this. I had been dating a girl at the time who mentioned a school, an acting conservatory in New York City. I did some research. I auditioned. I came out here, and I've lived in New York for the past 13 years, worked professionally for most of those years as a performer, doing musical theater shows, some stage shows, touring in some national tours, and kind of piecemealing a career around that. You know, the thing about the performing arts is you're not performing all of the time. And so I've had just about every possible temporary job known to man. And then the past 2 years ago, I got a full-time job at a not-for-profit organization called Equality Now. It's a women's rights organization. And from there, I sort of transitioned to where I work now, which is Schoology.com, which is a learning management system in the ed tech sector, which is kind of a exploding universe right now. And we're sort of on the forefront of that, I guess, what I see as a sort of educational paradigm shift. So it's really, really neat to be working with a company who is letting me kind of see that. Because my whole family is in education. My sister's a teacher, my brother-in-law's a teacher, you're a principal. And so, yeah, that's it. That's the past 12 years. Here I am.
So we'll touch more on the Schoology aspect a little bit later, but let's go back real quick. The school you're talking about, where you eventually wound up studying, is in New York City, the American Music Dramatic Academy.
Yep.
Famous graduates include B. Arthur from the Golden Girls, correct?
Incorrect.
I thought it was not B. Arthur, no?
No, not B. Arthur. Tyne Daly went to our school.
Okay.
Jesse Tyler Ferguson from Modern Family. Paul Sorvino.
I could have sworn B. Arthur.
No, I'm not sure where B. Arthur went to school, but I don't think we can claim her.
Oh, man, okay, well, I thought I did my homework. I guess I didn't.
No, maybe she did. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty confident that is not true.
All right, well, let's start there, because in the world of K-12 education, like I described at the beginning of the interview, the idea is you graduate, you either get a job, go to the military, go to college. AMDA is not your traditional college scenario. So someone like you, who that was a great fit for, coming out of high school, how would you even know about a program like that? There's got to be ways we can do a better job in our K-12 world. Ways principals can influence the way our guidance world works, the way our career path choices work. How do you find that type of environment?
Well, I think, it's difficult because for me it was easier because I was a little bit older at the time. I was 21 years old. I had a couple years of quote-unquote real life outside of school at that point, and I had the notion of, okay, this is what I want to do, and so I sort of was able to do some research. To be honest with you, that type of program was never floated in high school. I never saw a flyer. I never even thought of it as a potential outlet, like a acting conservatory, and maybe it's because I had never really had that goal.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really nothing like that was ever presented. It wasn't your standard. At the time, it wasn't even an accredited program. It wasn't a degree program. Subsequent to that, it is now. So I'm not even sure. To be honest with you, I don't know. I think it'd have to be maybe something presented to those in the arts. Maybe guidance would have been a great idea. I don't know, to be honest with you. Especially when you're a kid and you don't really know what you want to do.
Well, then whose shoulders does that fall on? Should it be the high schools, the school districts that are seeking out that type of place, or does the schools like AMDA need to do a better job of promoting themselves to the public schools and the private schools?
I would say the latter is important. I think, they have to do their own outreach. That's sort of on them. But at the same time, I think my personal opinion is that the picture is even bigger than that. It's that the arts in most schools, K through 12, at least in my experience and the experience of many people I know, the arts are not presented with any sort of priority or any sort of, I don't want to say respect, but for lack of a better term, I'll say respect. It's always seen as like a second, third tier thing. You've got your academics, you've got your sports. You're much more likely, if you're a talented football player, to hear, oh, you've got some options of getting a scholarship and going to college for this, and pursuing professional sports, or at least using professional sports as a way to further your education. Whereas you don't hear, you're the girl who always gets the leads in the musicals. You're not hearing them floating ideas. Well, maybe we can get NYU interested, or maybe we can get you to New York. I don't see that taking place, and I think until the arts are sort of funded and represented as much as those other areas, it's going to be tough to really push it.
It's an interesting description that you give, because in the two districts where I've had my most administrative experience, both Council Rock and Downingtown, the arts and music programs are heavily funded. They're almost overrepresented. And I don't mean overrepresented in a bad way. I mean, you actually have probably what you would have is a higher percentage of kids performing than you would in what a national sample would be if you had a national sample. But again, although we have that, and although the boosters are as strong as our sports boosters, in music and the arts, I would still say, on the whole, you definitely don't have, as you were stating, as many people initially going in to pursue whether it's music, whether it's vocals, whether it's musicianship, in terms of instruments, editing, and whatnot, as you do, athletes pursuing a Division 1, 2, or 3 level school. And I don't know what the answer is to that necessarily. I mean, most principals don't come from a music background. I'm not saying not all. I definitely know several that do, but I would be hard-pressed to be able to help direct a kid towards the right school for music.
And the thing, too, is that you find a lot of people who, enjoyed doing plays in high school or middle school, whatever, in school. And a lot of the people I know in my circle who have steady, lucrative, good jobs in this sector are not necessarily actors. There are people who work on the tech crews. There are audio engineers. There are scenic designers, lighting designers, costume designers, stage managers, makeup artists. There's just like any other career field. Just to say, if you work in education, you're a teacher, is a very limited scope, limited view. There's a huge backlog in the arts and in performance. There's also people who work in nonprofit to help fund the arts. People to So it's, I guess, I'm trying to think even if it's even something I ever discussed with my career advisor. We had a career advisor, right?
You had a guidance counselor.
Guidance counselor, yeah. I'm not sure it was ever discussed.
back in our Upper Marion days. So I remember Bob Dager, who was my guidance counselor in high school, sat me down for my one meeting that I had, I think junior year, asked what I was interested in, which I didn't know at the time. I said, I don't know, maybe law, maybe education. I'd like to run in college. At the time I did. And he goes, St. Joe's is a good school. Go to St. Joe's. And that was the extent of our conversation.
The only thing I recall, and I believe, I feel bad for not remembering her name because she was the cheerleading. I think she was a cheerleader. Ms. Brower.
Brower. Sounds right. Yeah.
Lovely woman. I have nothing against her, but I believe my meeting went so far as to discuss, how to get better SAT scores, because at the time that was sort of the barometer. I don't know if that's changed, if that's still sort of the gold standard.
Important. Yeah.
And that was the discussion. The discussion was get a good SAT score so you can go to college and figure it out then, which I guess is also I guess college is the time when you sort of start figuring those things out.
It can be, depending on where you go. The interesting piece of research to tie in, which I'm sure many of our Rockstar listeners know, success in college. There's not a strong correlation between SAT scores and success in college. However, there is a good correlation between high school GPA and initial success in college. So that's really a more important factor. But anyway, I digress. Resiliency. Let's talk resiliency. So let's get into the career now. Take what you learned, through your high school career. You were involved in stage crew and whatnot, but didn't get involved into the actual the performing part until your senior year. So you were pretty much at the end of the line there. Doing what you're doing now and have been doing for the past 10 years, the whole notion of resiliency and stick-to-itiveness is very important. So how much of that did you learn in your K-12 schooling? How much is picked up in the real world? How much would you attribute to your home life? Do we do a good enough job in education?
That's a lot of pieces to tie together. I'll say this. Something I wasn't prepared for, and I think it's, you go to school and it's very linear. It's very progressive. It's very linear. You complete these set of goals, you move on to the next set, you move up grades, and you proceed linearly and forward. And so you sort of develop this expectation, this life expectation, that if you do certain things and you do them well or you do them correctly or at least efficiently, you then move on, you move forward. You graduate this, you go to college. You graduate college and get good grades, you get a good job that pays you this much. You work there for so long, you get a raise. I think it shows a career path where your success is not even based on your talent. It's not based on if you work in enough jobs and do a good enough job, then you get the next job. It's not that you get to, toil away in dinner theaters for 3 years and then you get to move on to Broadway. It doesn't work that way. There are factors that you have no control over, and really the only factor that you have any sort of what you learn over the course of time, because you go through periods of depression where you're like, nothing works. I'm talented. I work hard. I do a good job. I get good reviews, and still there's no progress. And what you learn is that to kind of deal with the things you can control. What can I control? My preparation, my approach to auditions, my work ethic when I'm in a show, the relationships that I build and how I establish them and sustain them. And that is something that, if you really trace it back, I think does go to your K-12 education. I think skills in time management, skills in preparation, and how you approach a task and how you see it through. And I think determination and stick-to-itiveness is something that, I think you build on those foundations you build early on in sports, in extracurricular activities, in groups and clubs. And those are things you can tie back to. I can tie back to my 7th grade math teacher, Mr. Simmons, who, was no nonsense. Maybe at the time it was a little scary, but, you might not understand why you have to do this homework, but you have to do it, trying to think about. Well, I can edit this breakout because I can't think of where I'm going with it. But that was a pretty decent answer.
All right. So before I move on to the world of Schoology and learning management systems, if you had advice for students coming out of high school, or let's even students in middle school, maybe even looking to choose the right high school. There's a lot of choices now. You have art schools, magnets, STEM programs. What advice would you give them if they were interested in pursuing a career path similar to what yours has been?
Well, First, I'm going to give a positive, because every time I ever hear people ask this question, it always comes down to the second half of my answer, which is how to prepare for the downsides of this. I will say that more than anything, if you do love performing, or you do love the arts, or you do love this sort of universe, you can make a living out of it. You can make it a job, and you can approach it like any other job a person has. You can approach it like a teacher. You can approach it like a doctor or a lawyer. There are so many more opportunities and things you can do with your life than anybody has prepared you for, than anybody can even tell you. So you really do have to find the things you love, and then research how you can make those a living, That said, the road is not always linear. So, going to college, if you can afford it, and if it's something that you want to do or can do, is always if I could go back in time, I say this all the time, I would have done some things differently, because there's a good chance that people aren't just going to open their doors and give you Broadway credits or give you the job you want to have. Sometimes you got to go and do other things, and the more skills you have, and the more paperwork documented saying that you can do various things, or that you have these grades, can only help. It can only help, because you're going to go through there are tough times. I know very few actors who just rolled up into New York City, or performers or stage managers or anything, who just rolled into the city and instantly had a career. It takes, my fiance, she's been on Broadway, and I've had a ton of friends who have been on Broadway, which a lot of people consider the pinnacle of at least stage, and a lot of people in movies and TV, and they still are looking for jobs every 6 months, and so sometimes you got to wait tables, and sometimes I'm much happier working at a desk job when I know that I have a paycheck coming in than waiting tables and relying on cash tips. So education in that regard that would be my advice, is that don't limit your scope as to what you want to do on the positive side, but don't make assumptions that you're the greatest thing that's ever happened and it's going to be easy, because one thing I can promise you is that wherever path you choose, it's not going to be easy. It is never easy.
Speaking of working for tips, another tip would be, if you are at the Toys R Us in Times Square, all the dressed characters in the terrible Mickey Mouse suits, they work for tips. And if you think that you want to get a picture with them, I would think twice about that.
Yeah, they're going to ask you for money. Everybody asking you for money for everything.
Yes, a supposed Buddhist monk asked Mike for money yesterday.
$50.
He wanted $50 for a blessing. He was also wearing Nikes.
And he didn't speak any English, so I was trying to translate for him while he was really accosting me. I couldn't figure it out.
Brilliant. All right, well, that's the end of part one. Our part two interview with Mike is going to get into the world of Schoology and the learning management systems in the world of K-12 education.
And now a word from our fake sponsors. But we'd really love if they were our real sponsors. Seriously, we would love it.
Man, I'm so bored. There's nothing fun to do around here anymore. Philadelphia area is completely boring. John, I need something high octane. What do you got for me?
What do I got for you, Nick? What do I got for you? I got action. I got intensity. I got violence. I got skill. I got grace. I have beauty on ice. That is the NHL, exemplified in the form of the Philadelphia Flyers Hockey Club. How's that sound to you?
I don't know. Tell me more.
What can I tell you about a group of men fighting side by side for every square inch of ice that they can maintain during the course of a game? The beauty of a Claude Giroux wrist shot going top shelf on a goaltender. The wonder of a Steve Mason glove save as a guy comes in on him one-on-one. Zach Ronaldo checking a man into the boards, and every once in a while dropping the gloves and going toe-to-toe in an on-the-ice fist fight. It's better than wrestling! Well, I don't want to insult you. It's as good as wrestling. I've always loved Flyers hockey. I was born, bred, and raised on Flyers hockey. And if there's anything that could happen that I could get possibly some kind of shameless plug for the Philadelphia Flyers Hockey Club, I will do anything somehow get affiliated with the Flyers.
You mean like advertising their website or their Twitter feed or the Facebook page?
Like PhiladelphiaFlyers.com?
That could be, we could do that. We could probably, I'm sure you could search them on Twitter and find their Twitter handle.
Here's how dedicated I am, Nick. I've emblazoned their logo on my body for the remainder of my life in the form of a Flyers tattoo.
You mean you have a Flyers tattoo?
I do.
They should definitely retweet us.
You would think they would.
Listen to our podcast before games.
At the very least.
Give us free stuff.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Any Flyers fans that, maybe when you retire, you're thinking about getting into education, give me a buzz, all right?
Yeah, with a little hook you up, maybe with a little jobby job.
Go Flyers.
J-O-B.
Thanks for helping RSP top the charts in the Edu podcast world. Keep it real with Twisted Steel and School of Peel.